March 26, 2019 updated, March 26, 2019 While investigators are busy trying to figure out what may have caused the crashes of Boeing's 737 MAX jetliners, a whistleblower who was formerly East Asia supply chain manager of Boeing's flight control system contractor has intensified his efforts to bring to light an issue that has been troubling him for the past 3 years. Substandard parts made in China with non-aerospace material have been installed in Boeing 777 and 737 planes that are still in service. Charles Chaosheng, she worked for Moog Aircraft for 10 years from 2006 to 2016. In 2006 he set up the Moog China supply chain and almost all approved suppliers were audited and approved by him except for the one he is now accusing of providing substandard parts. He has tried to bring his concerns about the faulty parts to the attention of Moog, Boeing, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, U.S. Department of Transportation, the U.S. Congress, and President Trump. The FAA found that 2 of Xi's concerns were substantiated, but the rest not. He also reported this issue to Chinese authorities, including Chinese leader Xi Jinping, the Civil Aviation Administration of China, and even the Shanghai Public Security Bureau. In an interview she did with NBC back in February 2018, she expressed his concern that Boeing parts supplied by Moog were outsourced to a third-party Chinese supplier that used cut-rate manufacturing processes. She said, "You need to bake the parts to get the hydrogen out of the parts, so the parts can still be solid with integrity. Otherwise the hydrogen goes into the parts. That can make the parts brittle, so the parts can fail." She also related to NBC another violation substantiated by the FAA concerning unbaked parts in Boeing 777 spoilers, with a hydrogen embrittlement hazard that might cause the parts and system to fail during flight. She told the Epoch Times that the parts in question are mainly components in the Boeing 777 and 737 spoiler systems, which are deployed during takeoff, early flight, and landing. Alarming findings, she said. He became aware in 2015 that Suzhou Nuhongji Precision Parts Co. Limited, NHJ, in Jiangsu Province, China, one of Moog's suppliers, was reportedly using cheap and substandard materials. He confirmed this with another aviation manufacturer, BAE Aerospace, the sole source for lavatories on Boeing 737 aircraft built since 2012, and the only other aerospace customer of NHJ. BAE Aerospace stopped buying from NHJ in 2013, after finding out that NHJ faked raw material certificates and used substitute materials resulting in BAE product failures, she said. She said, as the manager for Moog Aircraft, he was responsible for the quality of the parts and materials it purchased from all suppliers, and had the right to audit the suppliers. She later told the FAA that he believed based on his that NHJ had faked the raw material purchase record, and outsourced parts for Moog to an unknown supplier. She said to the Epoch Times, NHJ was outsourcing Moog, Boeing business to other unknown and unapproved subcontractors. One-third of Moog business, which was Boeing plane parts, were outsourced to illicit subcontractors during 2015 to 2017. And I am willing to testify to this under oath. FAA investigation. She's finding about outsourcing was confirmed by a FAA investigation conducted in September 2016. According to a FAA memorandum obtained through a Freedom of Information request, the following 2 allegations made by Xi were found substantiated. Moog supplier NHJ outsourced Moog machined parts to an unknown supplier. Shanghai, a NHJ subcontractor, did not properly bake parts both before and after the cadmium plating process, and forged the production process card. The improperly baked parts consisted of 4 different part numbers. However, Xi's 7 other allegations were found not substantiated by the same investigation. According to the FAA memorandum, Moog auditors identified the following non-conformance issues: A. Required stress relief baking was not performed prior to cadmium plating. B. Hydrogen embrittlement relief treatment baking after cadmium plating was performed for only 4 hours on all parts, not 8 hours as required per AMS QQP 416C specification. C. Baking procedure controls were not per AMS 2750 specification. And D. No records of furnace traces times were being maintained for more than 1 week. The FAA investigation also confirmed that 273 discrepant parts delivered to Boeing were installed into spoilers on the Boeing 777 aircraft. Safety critical. What most concerns she is that many NHJ parts are safety sensitive, and one is safety critical. One part number P665A003902, is the blocking or mounting lug of the Boeing 737 spoiler. This is a single point of failure (SPOF) part, which means if this part fails, the entire system will fail, which may cause a fatal accident. According to a purchase list she provided, Moog has bought 6,986 SPOF parts from NHJ during 2015 to 2017. She said these parts can be used to equip more than 600 aircraft, as each 737 uses 10 pieces. She said Moog is the exclusive supplier for all models of the Boeing 737, including the MAX planes, and NHJ is the only supplier for this SPOF part for the 737 spoiler. His conservative estimate is that 500 Boeing planes could have been compromised, and are still in service. When contacted by the Epoch Times, Moog denied she's allegations with this one-sentence statement: "In response to your request, please note that the Moog parts Mr. she references are not on the 737 MAX. The Epoch Times submitted a follow-up inquiry to Moog, with a list of 58 different NHJ parts purchased by Moog, and asked Moog to clarify and verify on which planes these parts are used. Moog has not responded to this request. She said, the motive of NHJ's using substitute material was that the substitute material was 1/3 or even 1/2 cheaper. NHJ could not be reached for comment. Serious safety threat. She said he first became concerned about the parts in May 2015, when 2 of his supplier development engineers, SDE, reported to him the NHJ had a bad history and BAE Aerospace stopped using the company. He became very worried and reported this matter to his direct supervisor, who brought NHJ into Moog. But his supervisor brushed it off. She also conducted some auditing and investigative work on NHJ, and found that NHJ was using an illicit material booking mid-system material identification, which violated the standard of the aerospace industry. NHJ mid-numbers had no traceability to raw material sourced from approved raw material vendors. And this violation is totally not acceptable, she said. She also traveled to NHJ a few times after the discovery of the unacceptable record-keeping, and found that NHJ stocked raw material for Moog in an open area. The material was mixed with other materials and was not properly labeled, he said. Some material had labels on them, some did not. She also found that some work-in-process (WIP) paperwork did not even have MID traceability, which means that NHJ had no traceability whatsoever in its manufacturing process. On August 7, 2015, she became a whistleblower within his company, bringing the issue to global supply chain management of Moog aircraft. She said he later found that NHJ used fake certificates to fabricate quantities of products they purchased from an approved vendor. He said he was able to determine this from a document he obtained from the approved vendor, showing the quantity of how many units it sold to NHJ, which was only 1/3 of what NHJ claimed that they had bought. On January 12, 2016, she alerted the CEO of Moog Inc. and the president of Moog Aircraft about the alarming safety threat. On Jan 13, 2016, she took this matter to the U.S. FAA. On the same day, he was fired. According to Reuters, Moog said she's employment was ended as part of a previously communicated global reorganization, and was not related to him raising issues about the supplier's quality. According to the FAA memorandum, after receiving Xi's report, the FAA investigator visited the Moog plant in East Aurora, NY on March 29, 2016, and interviewed Moog employees, who were most familiar with the process. After reviewing materials provided by Moog, and witnessing retesting of the materials' properties of parts, FAA concluded that Xi's allegation was not substantiated. In August 2016, Xi provided what he describes as more compelling evidence to the FAA. He told the agency about NHJ faking documents about SPOF parts, which were used in the Boeing 737 spoiler, and requested the FAA to reopen the case. The FAA did another round of investigation and found 2 items out of Xi's 9 allegations were substantiated, as mentioned earlier in this article. However, Xi was not satisfied with FAA's handling of this matter, even for the substantiated allegations. He found himself to be in disbelief that the FAA decided to let these admittedly unauthorized and literally unbaked parts to remain in service, sparing Moog and/or Boeing millions of dollars for removal and retrofitting. In response to the Epoch Times request for information and comment regarding Xi's whistleblowing, the FAA emailed the following statement: "The FAA closed its Moog investigation regarding Mr. Xi's allegations. The agency determined the corrective action defined by Moog and Boeing associated with the open substantiated allegation was appropriate to address the related issues identified in the investigation. The FAA investigation determined unsafe conditions did not exist. Boeing has not responded to requests for comment." A late-night intrusion. Xi believes that his allegations that NHJ faked documents and used inferior materials should be referred to criminal investigators, which he said he has repeatedly asked the FAA to do. After the recent Boeing 737 MAX crashes, he has sped up his efforts by writing to U.S. Rep. Peter DeFazio and Rep. Brian Mast, as well as President Trump. He said he is willing to travel to the United States at his own cost to testify to Congress, should Congress decide to hold a hearing on this. Xi has also taken to social media and Change.org to expose the issues and to draw public attention. He hopes more mainstream media can take up his story. Xi said his home in Shanghai was entered in a disturbing manner early in the morning on March 13. "It was the security guard who told me my doors were open. I went down to check 2 doors, one was the courtyard entrance door in the north, one was the door to my townhouse in the south. Both were wide open. I called police and the fact was recorded by policemen who rushed to my home. The doors were intact but wide open. Nothing got lost. All things were in a tidy state." She believes this intrusion was a warning, with the intruders demonstrating they could easily reach him. They want him, he said, to stop his efforts to expose the problems with NHJ's parts.